Hello, my name is Andre V, and I'm the founder of Parcel Locus Central. And my today's guest Jesper Bang-Olsen from the company Beam. Hi Jesper, how are you doing?
Hello, Andrea. Thanks for allowing me to join you here today, and nice to meet you.
I'm really looking forward this discussion because logistics industry is quite a big one, and but still there are not so many investment organizations who will invest into the industry. But yours is exactly like that. Your company Beam is investing into the logistics industry. Could you please elaborate a little bit what you are doing and what is the target sector of yours?
Yeah, so originally Beam was started as an idea by Christoph Bäumer, who is the family head of Bäumer Group, representing the family in Bäumer Group. Also, he's now retired CEO, but he's still in the board. He's also in the board of Beam. His idea was to challenge the mothership, Bäumer Group, which is a huge interlogistic big company, 6,000 people, presence in 72 countries, doing a lot of logistics, hardware systems design, delivering sortation belts to companies such as DHL, PostNord, all sorts of global companies. I think there are more than 2,000 sorter installations in the world. So they wanted to look into how can we challenge the mothership, and they actually did a startup safari in the city of Berlin at that time in 2016, 17. It was still very new. There was a little bit of a Klondike in Berlin. A lot of investments went in. It was ranked then back then as I think fourth startup city of Europe, fourth. Now I think it's the second biggest after London. We have many startups here and a lot of fortune seekers that wants to create startups in Berlin. But they did a safari and visited a lot of startups, and they decided then to launch a company builder. So Bäumer Group wanted to launch a company builder, meaning a company that builds companies for Bäumer Group. And in that context, Beam was simply established as a arm's length entity away from Bäumer Group, so its own governance, its own funding schedules, etc. A part away from Bäumer Group to make it independent and autonomous in terms of ideas and innovation, and really allowing Beam to punch in ideas that also could be painful for Bäumer Group as a logistics systems provider for the DHLs of the world. So I think it started back then. We launched then the first company in 2019. We now have 9 companies in our portfolio. We have, in Bäumer Group, we have different verticals. So we have logistics, airport, mining, building material, also e-commerce, etc. So we have different things there. So it's not only about parcels in Bäumer Group, but it's a big chunk, obviously, and that's why Beam, we are also doing parcel company building, but parcel logistics company building. So we have several companies that are really good at what they do in terms of software models for parcel logistics. So we are very interested in this topic, and we are also present with our startups at Post and Parcel Expo. We have booths. We also, as you know, in Leaders Logistics, we've been there several years now. Also represent. We work really closely together with Connect to Post, which I think is a great initiative for startups as well, run by Bernard Bukovic. So we are really into this, and we try to come up with a lot of startup ideas together with the founders that we meet here that actually apply to Beam, because that's the gig. They apply to Beam, and then we give them an industry problem, and then they try to build a startup with me primarily. And if they get through all the difficult filters and all the hurdles we have inside in terms of substance and consolidation of business model, etc., we will give them money to launch their startup. And then there will be independent managing directors in our ecosystem, as the others are. We have now 17 managing directors across all our companies in our portfolio. So that's kind of like tricky. So I think I work with 180 entrepreneurs since I started, 180, and we had 50 startup ideas in the pool altogether. We only have 9 that are launched and funded. So this also means that we continuously work with 6 or 8 startup ideas all the time. So at the moment, I have 6 startup ideas. I work with different entrepreneurs. We have 12 people in the house working with me across different teams to try to launch new startups. Some of them, most of them will fail. Some of them will pitch. Maybe they get a yes, maybe they get a no. We don't know yet. It's a board decision. But anyway, we'll try to give them equipped as good as possible in order to be fundable before they present their project, so that we are able to anyway give them that comfort that they did a journey with us where they have created a fundable startup. So that's the mission we have at Beam.
Okay, and what comes to the investments, in then what is your typical ticket size you are looking for investments in a company?
So I mean, we try to make sure that the run rate of the companies that we fund in the early stage are at least 18 months. And we have seen projects that has been below 1 million. Some has been above, but we think it's very important for startups also to, even though we have resources to give them more than, let's say, 500,000, we also think that it's really important for startups and founders to work agile in the beginning, to show that they can build an MVP that customers like, minimum product, get it out there, start to send some invoices to these customers. And then once they have proven that, so it's like proof of concept, right? And proof of business. Then there's a proof of market, and the go-to-market strategy needs to come into play there. And there, the product market fit of the startup is important. So before we issue more or give them more money for their journey, we need to see that proof of business is there. There's a proof of concept, and the customers like them. And we need to understand the sales cycles, the unit economics of the particular project, and also the team, how they work together, and if there's any risk there, it's also important to us. So we're working very much like a VC in that context, but still we are closer because we also try to deploy the unfair advantage from Bäumen Group, represented in many countries and with access to local customers, etc. So we try really to unlock that unfair advantage for the startups that we invest in, to make it easier for them to get to market.
Yeah, this is very interesting because you are quite the early you are involved in quite the early stage of the company that is the most hardest to finance. So this should be really appreciated. But let's talk about the logistics and your views on that, because logistics as such is huge. There are different technologies, different segments, as you mentioned, logistics, last mile, e-commerce. What do you see? What are the most interesting segments or use cases that you are looking for companies or business ideas, or what are the most promising you see in our industry?
I think there is a lot of things that has gone on for a long time. I mean, you know, obviously you are probably keen to look into parcel locker business, but it is something that has been there for a lot of years now. I think it was even when we started Beam, the first loggers was there. There's a lot of friction between the big players in the logistics industry and the startup when it comes to control over the customer, when it comes to promising a full vertical value chain delivery from, let's say, DHL. We see now that there can be tendencies that there will be more open platforms that will be used, but it's tough for the big players to embrace those, because then they feel they release some of the control over the customer intimacy that they believe they have in their model. So that's why you see also sometimes there's a parcel logger from DHL on the right side, and there's another one from another company on the left side. It's a little bit interesting that it works like that. Or you see also the complexity that one parcel logger cannot deliver all the parcel, even though it's on the corner of your street. It cannot deliver all the carriers. It can only deliver maybe half of it, or 20% of the carriers represented. So it's a little bit bulky at the moment. And I think parcel locker business is not something we are looking into from the Beam side due to the lack of democratization of the distribution model of the parcel lockers. We think it's really it's a pain point that needs to be solved a little bit better than it is as of now. And we are also a little bit we're not so last mile oriented at Beam. We are more medium mile. You know, we are looking at problems that are arising around the sortation center, around the distribution center, around the warehouse management. We think that returns is still a big problem in the industry. We know that 50% of fashion typically with some brands is returned, right? It's a crazy people. You have returns fraud. You have people that are using the garment in the weekend, sending it back on the Sunday, Monday to the fashion e-commerce provider. So there's a lot of inefficiency. There's a lot of issues with returns as such. So we are actually working now on returns. We have a startup in the making in this space and have already attracted pilot partners to solve some of the returns issue. And we think that, for example, sustainability angle of returns we can do more about that. We can do more about the destruction of returns, in particular in fashion. You have also even the rental of products that you buy. I mean, you buy something, you don't want it, why not rent it out to your peer in the neighborhood? So there's so many things, so many opportunities around that space, so that trying to disrupt the existing vertical where you have the product going from the warehouse to the end consumer and then going back. We think there are things that can be done in this vertical where you can optimize or reroute or locally reroute a fashion garment with smart technology, with geo-based technology. I think this is what we are curious to see if we can solve that and make it more efficient. But when it comes to last mile, and you know that probably also from the talks you have had with many other people, that unit economics is really, really tough, right? There's such a small pocket size to do things. I mean, that's really, really tough. So that's also something we are always concerned about, because we've worked on startup ideas previously. It's just an example. We did underutilized retail space, like empty stores, dark stores that came up with e-commerce, fast-moving consumer groups. We thought they could also be used for redistribution of parcels, maybe even sortation at some point a few years back. But we just had to. The unit economics did not work for that idea. It sounded like a really good idea, but it was a really bad idea, because you needed hundreds of people. Even though you automate a lot of things, you need a lot of people. You need people on payroll. You need to orchestrate just staff when it comes to logistics. So that's really, and there's a big gap now from you need to have staff, but you can automate everything 100% with robots and automatic system. But it's really expensive. So that's why it's an interesting space where you may even see aggregators, right? May even see aggregators for smaller companies that fills the gap between the big, Bring, shelfless, big Amazon warehouses. You have Shopify partners that are doing fulfillment, handling everything for small e-commerce. So I'm thinking there's a movement also in the aggregation of business model or aggregation of business for these big players that dare to invest in the automation. So that's a space we're also trying to explore a little bit. If there is a gap that could be relevant for startups to solve, to kind of like tap into being small, not being able to make a contract with a big warehouse and logistics 4PL, what would you do then? You need to have a garage then with your things, or you need to pay Amazon whatever 25% for handling your parcel. You don't want that, right? So then you'll be the Chinese company will kick your beep in terms of competition with their product that are somewhat similar. So there's so many things going on now here in logistics, and in particular to pick up on the Chinese Silk Road of parcels also going in, all the legislation going in now. all the sustainability requirement coming in from EU. There are so many business opportunities in this mega shift of complexity between legislation and orchestration of parcels and consumer behavior, right? Consumer behavior, they want to be more conscious, but they don't want to pay for it. So how can you bridge that gap with startup ideas? So I think it's just an unexplored, a lot of unexplored opportunities here. But the problem needs just to be good enough, right? And juicy enough for someone like us to invest in a company that does this. So I believe that there are many opportunities in parcel logistics, but the question is, what problem do these opportunities solve, and are the problems strong enough? Are they strong enough to support investment from a VC such as ourselves or others? Because if it is, then it has legs, right? So that's what it is. We see so many startups that are bumping, slowly, small revenues, bootstrapping. They can't attract investment. They have maybe one or two or three customers. They make whatever 500,000 euro revenue a year. They can do that for a couple of years. In the end, they will be so tired, and they will shut it down. We don't want that. We don't want to have that kind of startup. We try really to get the ones who get on the right track in the beginning and grow revenue fast, because the problem is really, really good. So that's really the key to what we do.
I think you mentioned absolutely right things, and I do share most of them. The first you mentioned this open data or data closeness, and this is absolutely like that in a sense. The logistics is totally siloed. The companies' supply chains are closed. Not only the lockers, but the whole supply chains are closed. There is no data. You don't know what trucks are available near you, whatever. So I totally share the vision that there is so much to do. But again, as you said, you have to be very cautious, because you have to catch up the right trend. You can't go against the trend, and the trend is not obvious. One trend is again automatization and parcel lockers, and this is obvious. But in other business models, as you said very correctly, the customers don't want to pay for that. And again, I do believe that it has to be changed in a sense. There's no free services available. Somebody has to pay for that, and that customer's money is actually that is paying for that. So this is really interesting, and I would really like to keep up our communication to see that the startups you are having, and to have those ideas what they are trying to change. This is really interesting, and I think this is very useful for the logistics industry, because this is quite a stubborn and old-fashioned area.
Yes, it is, and I think it's fair that it is, because they also have an interest in keeping a good relationship with their customers, and it is really their product is to send something from A to B, and if it doesn't work, then the product doesn't work, right? So I also understand the legacy that they have, but I just think that there are more things in play now: sustainability, convenience, price, even. I mean, digitization, even, right? So people want to track their parcel. You said it yourself. They would like to track the parcel. How can you do that if the system is closed and that the provider does not have any technology so you can track your parcel? So why not work with companies that can help you to do that? But then you need to be open. You need to be open source. You need to allow people to get access to data to actually supply technology. Actually, in other industries, big providers that had some kind of monopoly, what was it called? They have some
Oligopoly.
kind of
Oligopoly.
Thank you very much. Oligopoly. It's actually sometimes these customers they reason. These industry players, they reason in a way where they say, let's open our platform, because we anyway dominate things here. So let's open the platform and allow other people to build technology around our core business. That's something that has happened in industries that I have been creating startups in previously, and those ecosystems could also be something that the big players could think about. Why not make an app store? Why don't DHL create an app store where startups can create apps for their infrastructure, and DHL then or it could be FedEx, or it could be all sorts of other, also local players. Why don't they create an app store, and then startups can fill in app stores, and they can fill up apps for the end consumers that has the requirement of branding from the vertical player. It has the requirement of they will share data, but obviously not confidential data. But actually, it could be quite interesting to see if that could develop new innovation around those. I mean, you could even say, I have a parcel logger. I'll use DHL App Store now, and I will build an app now for my parcel logger on the DHL App Store platform. There's so many things that could be done. And I think that many of the big parcel companies, they are in a position where they could actually launch technology platforms for the market to add additional technology to what they have, right? Let's say you have a label tracker. You have a label that can be read by all the camera systems in the sortation center. Your label is put on any parcel. Then you create an app with your app store, and then suddenly DHL, they have a parcel tracker in the platform that goes across any other distribution pair because it's associated with the label that somebody puts on a parcel. There can be so many new ideas that could come around the open source or democratizing the entire layer of this parcel movement from the big player side, that I think could be quite interesting. But I don't know where they are with this. Maybe they don't want to do it. I haven't seen anything like that, these kind of app store platforms. Maybe it will come, maybe it will not. I know that they work together. So I know that the local postal operators work really closely together on innovation. But that's not the same as to open for data, exchange data with startups, etc. That's more like longer down the line. But yeah.
There is actually one example of that, but this is not coming from Europe. This is coming from Northern America, and this is again the reason of our development in Europe. The business case is that there are whether very strong national carrier like DHL or La Poste or Royal Mail who dominates the market, and they keep the system closed. But in Northern America there are much more free companies, and there is one company, Coloni, who is doing
Yeah. Okay.
operating a system and
Mhm.
allowing companies to build apps on top
Cool.
of that. And again, I really support this kind of approach as you did, because we have to democratize or again, now I didn't spell it
Yeah,
correctly.
and it's a funny word, because democratize is it's interesting, because we want to allow anybody to build ideas that are. I mean, if the ideas are good enough, then people will use the technology. SICK is the camera provider of many of the parcel companies. They have an app store because they are one of the big players in the camera technology provisioning in parcel sector. They have an app store. You can build an app for a SICK camera. But why wouldn't you be able to build an app for the entire vertical of the parcel distribution system, right? It's like, then some of it could be integrated with the camera. Another thing could be integrated with the driver app, etc. It's kind of interesting. I think that for the end consumer, there will be a huge gain if anyone could build cool technology for end consumers when it comes to parcel. We have met so many startups with great ideas, but they're just stuck on the vertical protection that we see from the
Yeah,
big players.
but everything starts again from the standardization. We don't
Yeah.
have in our industry standards, even the data standard, the integration standards, and that's and those are closed systems within these silos, and this is the reason. So before opening up, we have to standardize our data so that
Yes.
it can be accessible.
Yeah, and therefore, luckily, we now have AI, we have LLM, we have NLP, all sorts of good technology that could actually allow a standardization of a lot of the data, so that it could be applied in different contexts, right? So it's also interesting how they will embrace that. I know it's always on the agenda for on these conferences how to deploy AI, but it's more like it's more operational what they're talking about at the moment. It's not so structural, right? It's operational. It's based on how do we use AI to get parcels through faster. It's more like how do we do that. The case stories is evolving around that, but it's not evolving around how do we use AI to standardize the data so that we can innovate faster as an industry? I mean, this is not a question. So it could be a question in the future for some of the future conferences. I think it could be quite interesting to know what the blockers are to make that happen, right? Because why not?
Absolutely. But Jesper, I think we have to wrap it up now. But luckily, we have an opportunity to hear you much more and much more closely in next Leaders in Logistics conference in October in London. So you will be speaking there, and everybody who looks that this is an interesting topic and maybe he has something to say to you, he can meet you there in London in few months' time.
Yes, that's correct. I look forward to it.
Okay, but thank you, Jesper, for this short interview, and hopefully see you in London at least, if not before.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you very much, Andre, and I hope it was valuable. And look forward to see you soon.